Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you should trust the most? Imagine this. You've just shared the happiest news of your life, expecting your first child, the joy of a growing family. And the very person who should be celebrating with you turns everything upside down. Instead of support, you are met with hostility, manipulation, and a plan to ruin your happiness. This was exactly what happened to me after I announced my pregnancy. For 7 years, I had tried to maintain a civil relationship with my sister-in-law, Kayla. At first, she seemed like just another family member I could get along with. But over time, I started to see a different side of her, one that was toxic, manipulative, and driven by jealousy. Despite everything I did to build a peaceful relationship, she always seemed to find a way to belittle me, challenge my decisions, and even create chaos in my marriage. But nothing could prepare me for what she did the day I shared the news of my pregnancy. Instead of celebrating, Kayla decided to make my moment of joy all about her, embarrassing me in front of everyone, causing a scene at my husband's birthday party, and attempting to humiliate me in the cruelest way possible. Little did she know, her attempt to destroy my happiness would backfire spectacularly, and her plan would lead to consequences she never saw coming. But what happens when someone pushes you to your limits? How far will you go to protect your family, your happiness, and your peace of mind? This is the story of how I stood up for myself, how a single moment of truth turned the tables, and how a manipulative sister-in-law learned that messing with me would have serious repercussions. Growing up, family gatherings were always a source of comfort for me. They were a time when we came together, put aside our differences, and celebrated each other. But as I reflect on those moments now, I realize how much of that comfort was just a facade, masking the tensions beneath the surface, particularly between me and my sister-in-law, Kayla. It's funny how you can spend so many years trying to create a picture-perfect image of your family, only for it to be shattered by the smallest, most unexpected events. I remember the first time I met Kayla, back when Harry and I were still dating. She seemed sweet, almost protective of him, in a way that was both endearing and a little unnerving. I thought, this is family. She cares about him. Maybe we'll get along just fine. But over time, I started noticing things, small, seemingly harmless things at first. Kayla was always around when we were making decisions, offering unsolicited opinions about everything from where we should go on our honeymoon to what kind of house we should buy. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate advice. It was that her advice always came with an underlying message that I wasn't quite good enough. When Harry and I got engaged, the tension became impossible to ignore. Our engagement should have been a joyful occasion, but when we announced it at a family dinner, Kayla's reaction was anything but supportive. She stayed quiet, her face unreadable, until she suddenly stood up, left the room in a hurry, and later called Harry, sobbing about how she should have been the first to know. She accused him of not valuing their bond as siblings, of betraying her by sharing the news with everyone else before her. I was left stunned, unsure of how to respond, and Harry, equally caught off guard, had to spend the next few hours calming her down. It was a moment that made me question whether I would ever be accepted in this family. But what hurt even more wasn't just her reaction to the engagement. It was her constant belittling of me. She would often make sly comments about how Harry's exes were so much more accomplished than I was, how they would have been the perfect match for him. Each time she did this, Harry would ask her to stop, but she always found a way to make me feel like I was just a placeholder, someone he could settle for. I watched as she continued to act as if she was the most important woman in his life, despite the fact that we were planning a future together. One of the most memorable and painful moments came when we were preparing for the wedding. Kayla made sure to insert herself into every aspect of the planning. From the smallest details, like criticizing my choice of wedding dress, to bigger decisions like the wedding venue, she made sure to have an opinion on everything. But it wasn't just the opinions. It was the cutting remarks that followed. When I picked the flowers for the ceremony, she didn't hesitate to declare how tasteless they were. "Are you sure you want this for your wedding? It's so basic," she'd say with a smirk, making me feel as though nothing I did would ever be good enough. It came to a head one day when we were discussing the wedding decorations with my mother-in-law. I mentioned my choice of centerpiece, and immediately, Kayla chimed in, mocking my decision in front of everyone. She claimed that I had no sense of style, and that Harry deserved someone with more class. That was the moment I snapped. I had been patient for so long, but this was the final straw. I couldn't stand the continuous mocking, the snide comments, and the backhanded compliments. I had tried for years to stay civil, to be the bigger person, but I realized I didn't have to tolerate her behavior anymore. I told Kayla she was no longer welcome at the wedding. I didn't care if she was family. The way she had treated me, the way she had undermined me for years, made it impossible for me to even look at her without feeling resentment. And to my surprise, Harry supported my decision. For the first time, he stood up to his sister, making it clear that her toxic behavior was unacceptable. I thought it would bring peace, but instead, it led to an even bigger fallout, one that would set the stage for the shocking events to come. I thought the worst was behind me after Kayla agreed to stay away from the wedding. But nothing could have prepared me for the game she would play next. Her actions would push me to the edge, testing the limits of my patience and my capacity for forgiveness. And what happened next would change everything. The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I had spent months planning every detail, from the flowers to the guest list, envisioning a day full of joy, love, and support. But when the day arrived, the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for years erupted in a way I could never have anticipated. As I stood in front of the mirror in my wedding dress, a mix of excitement and nerves rushed through me. The dress was perfect, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like everything was falling into place. My mother-in-law was in the room with me, helping me adjust my veil, and we exchanged a few excited words about how beautiful everything looked. I had made peace with my wedding day, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Kayla was out there, sitting in the audience, and I knew she would be watching me closely, waiting for me to slip up. My heart skipped a beat when I heard the music start, signaling the beginning of the ceremony. I took a deep breath and walked down the aisle, the warmth of Harry's gaze locking with mine as I approached him. It was a moment I had dreamt about for so long, and as I reached the altar, I couldn't help but smile. But as soon as my eyes scanned the crowd, I saw her, Kayla. She was sitting in the front row, her posture rigid, her eyes cold. The tension in her expression was palpable. I knew that no matter how much I tried to enjoy this moment, she would somehow find a way to ruin it. The ceremony proceeded, but I could feel Kayla's eyes on me every step of the way. Her gaze was intense, filled with what I could only describe as disdain. She wasn't there to celebrate, she was there to make a statement. Her every movement seemed calculated, from the way she shifted in her seat to the way she whispered to those around her. I could feel her negativity radiating across the room, but I refused to let it affect me. I was determined to enjoy this day, to take it all in, until the moment came when she stood up. In the middle of our vows, as Harry and I held hands, Kayla abruptly stood and stormed out of the ceremony. The gasps from the guests were audible, but Harry and I didn't move. I could feel his hand tighten around mine, his brows furrowing in concern. I knew he had no idea what was going on, but I did. She had planned this. This was her way of making sure everyone knew that she was still the one who needed attention, still the one who needed to be the center of everything. The ceremony continued, but my mind was no longer in the room. I was consumed with thoughts of Kayla's outburst, of the way she had sabotaged something that was supposed to be about us. I couldn't believe she would go so far as to make a scene on my wedding day, the one day I had worked so hard to create, the one day I had dreamt of since I was a little girl. After the ceremony, when the guests were mingling, I received a call from Harry. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. He had just spoken to Kayla, who had been sobbing uncontrollably. She had accused him of abandoning her, of making her feel unimportant, and of not valuing the bond they shared as siblings. She was blaming him for everything, as though it was his fault that she wasn't the one getting married, as though this day had somehow stolen something from her. At that moment, everything hit me at once. The years of tension, the passive-aggressive comments, the constant undermining. It had all led to this. Kayla had always been the center of attention, always had the power to manipulate situations to her advantage. But now she was trying to control the narrative once again, using her tears and her manipulation to turn the day that was supposed to be about us into another one of her dramatic moments. I felt my anger rise, but I didn't show it. I listened as Harry tried to calm her down, trying to explain that this day wasn't about her, it was about us, about our future together. But Kayla wasn't listening. She was too caught up in her own emotions, too trapped in her jealousy and her need to control everything. As the day wore on, I couldn't help but feel betrayed. This was supposed to be a fresh start for me, for our family, but instead it felt like a continuation of the drama and manipulation I had been subjected to for years. And for the first time, I realized something. I didn't have to take this anymore. As the night came to a close, I made a decision. I was done being the person who quietly accepted Kayla's cruelty. I was done letting her walk all over me, done letting her dictate the terms of my happiness. This was my life, my marriage, and no one, especially not Kayla, was going to ruin it. I knew there would be consequences for standing up to her, but I was ready to face them. In that moment, I felt a shift in myself. It wasn't just about defending my wedding day. It was about defending myself. It was about taking back control of my own life. And for the first time in years, I felt empowered. The high point of the evening came when I stood by Harry, ready to face whatever would come next, knowing that I had finally found my voice. The days following the wedding were a blur. The joy of the ceremony was quickly overshadowed by the fallout from Kayla's outburst. At first I thought maybe it was just the stress of the day, the culmination of too many emotions for her to handle. But as time passed, I began to realize that it wasn't just a one-time incident. Kayla's behavior, her need to manipulate and control, had become a consistent pattern in our lives. In the days after the wedding, Harry and I tried to keep things normal. We spent time together, focusing on our new life as a married couple, making plans for the future. But there was an unspoken tension between us, something that hadn't been there before. I could see the toll it was taking on Harry. He had always been close to his sister, and even though I knew he was frustrated with her actions, I could tell he felt torn. It wasn't easy for him to see the woman he loved clash with his sister, the person he had grown up with. I tried to reassure him, reminding him that we were a team now, but I could also feel my own frustration growing. Kayla's actions weren't just affecting me, they were affecting our relationship. I had spent so long tolerating her behavior, but now it was clear that the damage she had done to our relationship was not something that could easily be undone. I couldn't let it go any longer. One evening, after dinner, Harry and I sat down to talk. We had both been avoiding the conversation, but it was time. "I don't know what to do about Kayla," he said, his voice quiet. "I don't want to lose her, but I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." I felt a knot form in my stomach. This was the moment I had been dreading, the moment when I had to decide whether to push my husband to take a stand against his sister or to continue tolerating her behavior for the sake of family harmony. I knew this wasn't just about her actions toward me. It was about her impact on our future, on our happiness, and on the kind of relationship I wanted with Harry. "I know," I said, taking his hand. "I don't want you to lose her either. But she's not just your sister. She's toxic, and she's damaging our relationship. I can't keep pretending that her behavior is okay. I need you to stand up for us, for me." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words. I could see the struggle in Harry's eyes, the battle between his loyalty to his sister and his commitment to me. I understood it. He had always been the protector in his family, always trying to keep the peace. But at that moment I realized that the peace we had been striving for wasn't worth sacrificing our happiness and well-being. "I'm sorry," Harry said, his voice breaking. "I should have done something sooner. I've always let Kayla get away with things because I didn't want to upset her. But I see now that it's not just her. It's all of us. I can't keep letting her dictate our lives." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. For the first time, I felt like we were on the same page. We had always been a team, but in the past, I had felt like I was fighting this battle alone. Now we were united, and I knew that whatever happened, we would face it together. The next few days were filled with tense conversations and decisions. Harry called his parents, explaining everything that had been happening with Kayla and how it was affecting our marriage. His parents were initially shocked and upset, but they quickly understood the gravity of the situation. They too had seen the way Kayla had treated me over the years and recognized that her actions were no longer something they could ignore. Together, we decided that it was time to set boundaries. Harry sat down with Kayla, determined to have a frank conversation with her about her behavior and the impact it was having on everyone around her. He explained that while they were family, there were consequences to her actions, and if she didn't change, she would no longer be a part of our lives. Kayla's reaction was predictable. She became defensive, crying and accusing us of abandoning her, of making her feel unimportant. But Harry stood firm, refusing to back down. For the first time, he was putting our family first. His new family, the one he was building with me. It was a difficult conversation, one that left both of us emotionally drained. But I could feel something shifting. For the first time, I saw Harry take control, making the difficult choice to protect our marriage and our future. And I realized that this was the moment of change, the turning point we needed to move forward. But even with the boundaries set, the real challenge was yet to come. Kayla's actions had left a lasting impact on me. I was no longer the quiet, passive person I had once been. I had stood up for myself, and I wasn't willing to go back to the way things were. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even family, make me feel small or insignificant. As we prepared for the arrival of our baby, I found myself focusing more on the future than on the past. I was excited to be a mother, to create a home filled with love and warmth for our child. But I also knew that Kayla's influence wasn't something I could just forget. Her actions had changed me, had changed how I viewed family and loyalty. And as I looked forward to the future, I knew that the decisions we made now would shape the kind of family we would become. In the weeks that followed, I found myself reflecting on the choices I had made, the steps I had taken, and the family that had shaped me. It's strange, really. I had always believed that family was about unconditional support, about sticking together through thick and thin, but in the midst of all the chaos, I realized that family isn't just about being there for each other in the good times. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. The truth I had come to understand was painful, but liberating. Sometimes, protecting your family means making hard decisions and drawing boundaries, no matter how much love you have for them. For years, I had tried to be the bigger person, tried to forgive Kayla for the things she had done, believing that family meant tolerating their flaws. But in doing so, I had allowed myself to be silenced, to be manipulated, and to live in the shadow of someone who never saw me as an equal. As Harry and I sat in the quiet of our living room one evening, talking about the future, I realized that what had been broken in our family could only be fixed if we stopped pretending everything was fine. "I'm glad we finally made this decision," I said, my voice soft but firm. "It's been so hard, but I know we're doing the right thing." Harry looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and sadness. "I never realized how much I had let her get to us, to me," he admitted. "I was so focused on trying to keep the peace, but at what cost? I see now that I didn't just fail you. I failed us as a family." I could feel the weight of his words settling in between us. This was the moment of reckoning, where everything we had been through, the years of tension, the manipulations, the misunderstandings, came to light. It wasn't just about Kayla anymore. It was about us, our relationship, and the future we wanted to build for ourselves and our children. We can't let anyone, not even family, dictate our happiness, I said, my voice gaining strength. "We've built something real here, Harry, something beautiful, and we need to protect that." It wasn't easy to say those words, to acknowledge that family could be the source of so much pain. But it was the truth. Over the years, I had learned that real family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who love and support you unconditionally, the ones who make you feel seen, heard, and valued. I realized that, in the end, family isn't defined by shared history or obligation. It's defined by the respect and care we give to one another, the trust we build, and the willingness to stand up for each other when it matters most. As the days passed, I started to see things differently. I no longer felt like I had to fight for my place in this family. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone anymore. I had learned that self-worth doesn't come from the approval of others, especially not from those who would seek to tear you down. It comes from within, from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and the strength you have to protect those you love. I realized, too, that while I couldn't change Kayla or control her actions, I could change how I responded. I could choose to let go of the resentment, the bitterness that had built up over the years. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened, but about finding peace in knowing that I had done everything I could to make things right. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to forgive, not for the other person, but for yourself. It was a lesson I would carry with me, not just for the rest of my marriage, but for the rest of my life. And then, in the quiet moments when Harry and I talked about the future, our children, our dreams, the life we were building together, I felt something deep and genuine stir within me. This was what family should be: love without manipulation, support without judgment, loyalty without conditions. It was about understanding each other, accepting each other's flaws, and choosing to grow together, even when the road was difficult. As we prepared for the arrival of our child, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. The family I had always dreamed of wasn't the one I had been born into. It was the one I had created with Harry, with the love and trust we shared. And as I looked forward to the future, I knew that no matter what challenges came our way, we would face them together, stronger and more united than ever before. It was in that realization that I truly understood the power of family. It wasn't about perfect relationships or flawless harmony. It was about standing by each other, no matter the flaws, no matter the scars, because in the end, it's the love we give, the respect we show, and the strength we find in one another that defines us. As the days passed and life slowly returned to normal, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened: the wedding, the fallout, and the choices we had made. I couldn't help but think about how much I had changed, how much Harry had changed. We had both learned valuable lessons about love, boundaries, and the importance of standing up for what truly matters. The journey hadn't been easy, and the scars would take time to heal. But there was one thing I knew for sure: we had grown stronger because of it. That moment when Harry and I made the decision to draw the line with Kayla, to finally put our family first, marked a turning point. It was the moment we decided that no one, no matter their role in our lives, would ever have the power to destroy the peace we had fought so hard to build. In that quiet, intimate conversation, we not only defended our marriage, but we also redefined what family meant to us. I often find myself looking at Harry, watching him with our son, and feeling a sense of contentment I've never known before. The love we share has become a fortress, unbreakable by the forces outside. Every day, as we navigate the challenges of parenthood, I'm reminded that the family we've created is the family that truly matters. And while Kayla's actions will always be a part of our story, they will never define us. Our journey hasn't been easy, but it's been ours, and in the end, that's all that matters. The family we've built is built on love, trust, and respect, values that no one can take away from us. And as I look forward to the future, to the life that awaits us, I know that no matter what obstacles come our way, we will face them together, stronger than before. I've learned that family is not about perfection. It's about loyalty. It's about standing by each other, even when it's hard, and it's about letting go of the things that no longer serve us. It's about finding peace, even in the midst of chaos. And above all, it's about love. True unconditional love that doesn't seek to control or manipulate, but to uplift, to support, and to grow together. As I watch my son sleep peacefully, I'm reminded of how far we've come, how despite the hardships, despite the challenges, we've managed to build something beautiful. And in this quiet moment, I ask myself, what does family truly mean to you? Are we holding on to what no longer serves us? Or are we making space for the kind of love that will carry us through everything? Because in the end, that's all that matters. Love. It's the foundation of everything, the thing that keeps us strong, even when the world around us feels like it's falling apart.